Hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. With the death sentence awarded to former Indian naval officer Kulbhushan Jhadav by a Pakistani military court, India has now made it clear that its focus for now lies on bringing Jhadav back, irrespective of the repercussions it has on its ties with Pakistan. Both External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj and Home Minister Rajnath Singh called the death sentence premeditated murder. Immediately after the news came in, India's Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar summoned Pakistan's High Commissioner Abdul Basit and issued a démarche. Undoubtedly, the Indian government is naturally very angry, but despite the outrage, the government will have to calmly and objectively look at the options available to bring Jhadav back. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the options before the Indian government. Joining me on the program today are Vivek, Katju, former diplomat, retired Air Vice Marshal Kapil, defence expert, Siddharth, Varadarajan, founding editor, TheWire.in, and Sanjay Bharadwaj, Professor, South Asian Studies, JNU. Siddharth, Varadarajan, I'd like to begin with you, of course, before we get into what the options really are of the Indian government, or for that matter, Jhadav himself. Let's talk about the sentencing itself. And, were you surprised at all when you heard of the news?
Absolutely. I mean, Pakistan had kind of gone quiet for about 10 months after they initially made their announcement of having captured him and then putting him on display with that, video so-called confession that was broadcast. And for a month it was quite usual to see Pakistani diplomats and officials crow about the capture of Jhadav and how this finally was the smoking gun they had to prove Indian interference in Balochistan and so on. But after that, there was a lengthy period where Pakistan kind of went quiet, and Sartaj Aziz in December last year pretty much told the Senate that Pakistan didn't have the kind of evidence that they had initially said they did possess. So to go from that lengthy period of silence and then Sartaj Aziz's own statement to this announcement of a field general court-martial and a death sentence is definitely very astonishing. And I'm really at a bit of a loss to understand what exactly is motivating the Pakistani official, the Pakistani establishment to do this sort of thing, because they don't add up with the facts, they don't add up with what is normal diplomatic practice, they don't add up in legal terms, either in terms of Pakistan's domestic law or in terms of international law. It's really something that is quite astonishing.
Fair enough. Ambassador, is Pakistan trying to use this as a leverage for something else?
No, I think right from the beginning, their attempt has been to use this matter, this abduction of Jhadav, Kulbhushan Jhadav, and to project him the way they have, to use it to create a kind of moral equivalence between India and Pakistan. I mean, their terrorism in India is now universally accepted. They've been claiming that we are interfering in Balochistan, but no one has been given much credence to it. So they wanted to use this matter for that purpose. Yes, I myself thought in March last year that they'll try to keep this matter in the forefront. But they went quiet for a while. We now know from the External Affairs Minister's statement that both countries, India and Pakistan, were in contact on this matter. She has said this. Now, we don't know whether there have been discussions or whether the contact was only through written notes.
Right.
But certainly, she's gone on record to say that India took a constructive approach to the Pakistani conditions and said that let us meet the man so that we can examine your allegations. This is the import of, to my mind, of what Sushma Swaraj said, told Parliament. Therefore, something has precipitated that.
Yes.
That is what is my impression, and we can speculate about this, but certainly there was a report which I think the Dawn carried a day perhaps or 2 days before this death sentence was announced, about a Pakistani retired officer who went missing in Nepal, and their allegation that the Indian intelligence agencies had lured him and trapped him. Now, that allegation has been repeated. So it's a question of speculation.
Right.
There's silence from our side, and obviously I don't think that there's any truth in it.
Fair enough.
But it's in such issues, it is not what is the truth, but what is the perception in Pakistan.
True.
Which drives issues.
Sure. Marshal, as far as this issue is concerned, say for instance, for argument's sake, that Kulbhushan Jhadav is indeed a spy, but does it warrant a death sentence in this manner?
Not at all. Not at all. By international norms, including Pakistan's own laws, I think the points that have been made so far do not merit a repetition. But I believe the concluding point that Vivek made is something bigger in the Pakistani eyes, which has precipitated this. That is could be one possibility. I'm also rather intrigued as to why such a hurry, without evidence, doing the field general court martial in so much secrecy, and the fact that the sentencing, the trial and the confirmation. I'm a military man, one has known court martials both in India and Pakistan. Even a normal court martial takes months, it can take 7 months, 8 months. I mean here, as has been rightly said, something has happened so suddenly that this has been pushed through. Now what it is, I can't fathom as well. But I mean, if you read the tea leaves, it does seem a combination of the effect of our government's sort of isolation of Pakistan, and therefore the point that was made, we get a moral equivalence, or we are now sort of in parity again in international eyes. But Frank, I think even there, the flip side is that the damage is more than the possible, because now possible gain, because now Pakistan's legal system, military judicial system, policies will come under far more international scrutiny.
Sure.
So it's actually a counterproductive.
Ambassador, I'm going to come to you, but Siddharth Varadarajan has to leave us. So I'm
one sentence.
Okay, yes.
No, they've said that it took them 3.5 months to have this court martial, but that's entirely wrong. I don't think it did, because if it had, it would have found mention in their first statement put out on the award of the death penalty.
True. Yes, fair enough. Siddharth Varadarajan, I understand that you have to be somewhere else. So one quick question before I let you go. Of course, India had asked for consular access to Kulbhushan Jhadav, but that was not granted, and many such things have happened. So does that point towards the fact that all this was premeditated and Jadav's fate was really sealed already?
But I don't know, at what stage Pakistan made up its mind to up the ante in this manner. And to rush through a court-martial and a death sentence. But the fact that they refused no less than 13 requests for consular access by India, in a way exposes Pakistan to a fairly robust legal challenge that India can mount internationally. If we are discussing legal options, because both India and Pakistan are signatories to the optional protocol of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, which means that in the event of a dispute over the subject matter of this convention, both countries have accepted in advance the compulsory jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. And the ICJ has ruled in earlier cases where some countries, notably the United States, did not give timely consular access to, in one case Germany, in one case Mexico, when their nationals were subjected to arrest and trial in the US. And the ICJ found in favor of the country whose prisoners were denied consular access. So I think India has a fairly robust case, and I think that this really has to be fought at multiple levels. I don't know whether the MEA or the government of India has the appetite to go to the ICJ, but the fact that Pakistan willfully flouted its obligations under the Vienna Convention gives India a very, very strong leg to stand on in appealing to the international community to insist that Pakistan must abide by the fundamental principles of international law that govern a case like this.
Sure, fair enough. Yes, Ambassador, you wanted to say something, but very quickly, because I have to get my fourth guest
no,
on the
but
picture
please,
as well.
I think you get him and then I'll come
Okay,
back.
fair enough. All right. Sanjay Bharadwaj, as far as the bilateral relations between India and Pakistan now, do you believe they are headed for a downward curve after this incident?
Yeah, certainly the way, in the last few months, I have seen that the India and Pakistan relations had been troublesome in a way. that the international community and India had been successfully isolated Pakistan on issue of terrorism, and particularly from South Asian countries it had been isolated, and there were many attacks, the terrorist attacks had been taken place in Uri and Pathankot and all that. So international community had been keeping eyes on the activities and the developments are taking place across the border in South Asia from Pakistan side. And Pakistan had been alienated by the international community, and there are pressures from the international community, and Hafiz Saeed was arrested. So keeping that background in that, I think whatever developments are taking place, particularly in case of Kulbhushan, I think that one thing is very clear, that it is looking like a premeditated act, or I can say that the way the case had been taken to the military court, it is a conclusive in a way, because it did not take to the Pakistan civil court, and the way the trial had been taken place, I think they were planned in a way so that they can have better bargain, better negotiations diplomatically and bilaterally before the international community see that what Indians are doing, they are spying on that. And he was so my submission is that the way Pakistan had gone with the decisions for death sentence, I think they are having something big in their mind, and they want to bring India on the table so that they can have a better and they can negotiate, they can have a better place in before the international community. That
sure, fair enough. Air Marshal,
I just wanted to
no, my question as well. I mean, this is not something new, isn't it? It's happened in the past. Pakistan has done similar things in the past as well, where it has used people like Kulbhushan Jhadav as leverage to discuss several of its agendas, to bring those agendas to the table. And also, most of these people have been kept on death row not just for years but for decades.
But that's precisely, you know, when you come into this dirty game of espionage, this is a global phenomenon. It's not confined only to India, Pakistan, how one country uses the other country's spies to be able to pursue the agendas that are desired by that country. Point I wanted to come in on here was about India-Pakistan relations cannot go further down than they already are. And I think it would be, when we come to the options, we could discuss this in great detail. Irrespective of Jhadav and his fate, I think we need to move forward on the dialogue. But I also want to make the point that even at the most tense of moments in India-Pakistan, I think Indian viewers are so much exposed to the negative imagery that I'd like to draw attention to our viewers to the fact that just 3 days ago, Pakistani Marine Commandos, who are the front load assets of Pakistan's Navy, 2 of them were saved in a collision that one of their surface vehicles went through. 3 of our ships, a helicopter, a fixed wing aircraft were employed. 2 of them, along with 4 dead bodies of people who died in that collision, were duly handed over in true Bahami from the Indian Coast Guard to the Pakistani Maritime Security Agency. So the point I'm trying to make is there are moments when they are also engaging in some positive impulses.
Yes.
So all the more reason that we need to take all steps that are required to meet the foremost objective that Jhadav must not come to harm.
Fair enough.
That's the point.
Fair enough. Yes.
I think, see, by this incident also, the Pakistan will lose its ground further on this issue, because the way the international communities are criticizing, and the way international communities, and particularly Pakistan people, civil society people also questioning the way the trial had been taken place, and that they did not give the consular access to Kulbhushan Jhadav, and the way the international amnesty, and they have asked that. So I think Pakistan will further lose its ground. What they were thinking that they will gain an access to have better is to negotiate, to discuss with India on bilateral and multilateral issues.
Sure. Fair enough. Ambassador, as far as India's options are concerned, what's the best foot forward that we have to put now?
Look, let's be under no illusion. This is a move by the Pakistan army. The Pakistan army, when it comes to relations with India, control everything. They are not bothered about the Pakistani judiciary, and certainly they are not bothered about the Pakistan civil government of Nawaz Sharif, whatever may be the outward appearance. With great respect to Kapil, I'd like to say that in the case of our Navy rescuing Pakistani Marines, it was an obligation of the sea. And our defense services carry out their obligations. He's been a very distinguished member of the services and he knows this. The same can't be said of the Pakistanis, and that is illustrated by the very fact that the way they have handled the Kulbhushan Jhadav case, abducting a man from a neighboring country. So there is no question of bonhomie here. It's a case of India fulfilling its obligations that we've always done as good
there
international.
are also equally counter allegations.
Let him complete. Let him complete, and then you can have your say.
So there is. Oh, the Pakistani counter allegations are laughable. We shouldn't even consider them. Now, so here there's so that thing we should leave apart. Pakistan is not bothered when it comes to its international reputation. Had it been, it would not have been embarked on 3 decades of promoting terrorism in India, and everyone knows this. So the question is, what is our options? The international court, we ourselves have never gone to the court.
Yes.
In fact, the Pakistanis took us to the international court in the year 1999 after their naval aircraft, the Atlantic, was shot down in our territory. We said that Pakistan cannot take us to the court, that the court had no jurisdiction in India-Pakistan issues. And if we were to waive that exception, we, I think, will be opening a window for all kinds of trouble to ourselves. So that is out. That brings me back to the standard things in such matters.
Back channel talks then.
No. The standard thing is firmness and reciprocity. The Pakistanis themselves have indicated that they want the process to continue. Otherwise, why should they have repeated the conditions, as Sushma Swaraj told us, that 3 hours after this sentence was passed, our High Commission again received an offer from the Pakistanis for conditional consular access to Jhadav, provided, again, provided we fulfilled those conditions. And what are those conditions? To help us in Jhadav's investigation matter by providing them evidence and materials. Now, if they are lacking evidence, how have they given the death penalty to Jhadav? That's the first contradiction. But worse, she said herself that they made all kinds of ludicrous allegations against our senior officers. So that is how their mind is working today. So hence, in these matters, the classic dictum has to apply. And we have to find a way of reciprocity. That is the hard world that we inhabit.
Marshal, you said that, the relations can't go any lower than this, but as Ambassador is suggesting that they've made some ludicrous, demands, and it points towards the direction that it's only going to further deteriorate.
Yeah, well, I'm not a soothsayer which way they will go, but I can only, as a trend analyst, suggest certain sets of options that we mustn't let relations go further down. And yet at the same time, in the specific instance of Jhadav, we are not talking about cross-border terrorism, India-Pakistan relations, who is firm, who is not so firm. That's not the issue being discussed here. Rajya Sabha TV is one of the most mature television channels in the country, which all thinking Indians watch. So let me make 4 or 5 points. Point 1 is there is no doubt that Pakistan has made a mistake in this case without raising any questions. No evidence, hurried trial, wrong procedures, illegalities. In December, a promise is made by the Pakistani authorities that a proper case will be registered. Last month, again, the same thing was repeated to say a case will be registered against Kulbhushan Jhadav, and then you see the sentencing. So there are glaring problems there. we also are fully aware that their own foreign minister has on 2 occasions, once to the Pakistan Senate and not to Frank or you or Vivek, and that there is insufficient evidence, and what the dossier contains is mere statement.
But they then went back on that. They went back on it.
No, I'm just saying it's their own foreign minister.
Yeah, but they said he was misquoted.
So this only goes to show that the fault lines in Pakistan, which are structural, reflective of the civil military fault lines, we need to keep those in mind, because our policy has to keep in mind those fault lines. So therefore, how firm or how not so firm you need to be is related to a transaction. In this case, I would suggest, by way of option, diplomatic issues are already addressed by Vivek. I would suggest that the Government of India provide adequate assistance to the family of Commander Kulbhushan Jhadav, retired, to be able to appeal in Pakistan. That's one way. Secondly is we can ourselves, as Union of India, we can proceed against Pakistan legally through Pakistani courts. Thirdly, we could have, this is an opportunity for the so-called track 2, that let us hope that Pakistan civil society, like we have done in our case, will also rise to the occasion and file an appeal. The question is to file an appeal against the sentencing of Kulbhushan Jhadav. That is permissible even under the military code.
But Marshal, has that happened in the past? Isn't it the optimist in you who's speaking now?
The question, no, of course, we all have to be optimists and yet be realistic. We are only discussing what are the options available.
Fair enough, yes.
This is one
true.
set of options.
That's true.
The second
But will it work?
But there is, what you will notice, if I don't, I mean, if you pardon my immodesty, I am giving specific ways by which we can move forward and not saying, no, we have to be hard. That doesn't help.
Right.
If we have to be hard, what do we do? Do we go to war with Pakistan? What do we do?
Yes.
That has to be spelled out.
I haven't spelled out. I'll spell them
okay,
out.
okay.
I'll spell them out.
One at a time.
I'm not
One at a
pointing
time, please.
figures at you.
Oh,
I'm talking about what are the options of firmness and hardness and everything else.
Fair enough.
Last one.
Yes.
Diplomatic moral high ground has to be captured. That's extremely important, because this is the time when India can go on a diplomatic blitzkrieg to expose the problems that are created by our neighbor at a time when relations are, due to the neighbor's problems, are at a certain low. Therefore, as you see the statement, for example, by Nikki Haley, the ambassador to the UN, you've seen her statements, you've read them, the nation has read them. I think to deflect those kind of pressures for coming on India, we need to take the initiative, capture the high moral ground and go completely out into the international sphere to say, here is an issue, we don't know what it is. Last point is, I think, I don't know, there is speculation in the media that, you know, in this international game of spy versus spy, there's always swaps that take place. It is now more or less, I mean, the media have reported, not just in Pakistan, but also here, that Habib Zahir, Lieutenant Colonel of the Pakistan Army, retired, is in the hands of the Indian agencies. Okay. If that is true, now we have, therefore, if that is true, I don't know whether that's true or not, you then use that leverage. So there are multiple options by which we ensure that no harm comes to Kulbhushan Jhadav. At the same time, India's interests are not compromised without taking, whether you need to take a soft line or a hard line, that's the matter of relative.
Sure, fair enough. Sanjay Bharadwaj, as far as this issue itself is concerned, Pakistan has not given a date for the sentencing. So clearly, Pakistan wants to talk about this and use it as a leverage. And that's what's likely to happen in the near future, isn't it?
I tell you, see, Pakistan is working on 2 levels on this issue particularly. I think we need to understand Pakistan states. What Sir has talks about, that we should have the appealing approach and diplomatic approach and all that. I think this matter is not with the Pakistan civilian government. This matter is with the military. This matter is that military had gone for the trial and they have given the death sentence. And we have to understand that Pakistan is a dysfunctional state in those matters, particularly issues related to India, Kashmir, or it goes to Afghanistan. And you can see that the state is not working, the state within state is working on this issue, and they are basically, they want to pressurize, they want to bring India on the table where they can have their edge before for any negotiations, and bringing India under pressure. At the international fora, what we are talking about, the mobilizations and diplomatic efforts and isolations, I think Pakistan is mobilizing themselves and moving on international fora, getting supports from China.
Right.
China is particularly Dalai Lama visits, and China is very furious about Indian stand, and they are looking that China will support, and there are Pakistan supporting on CCAP, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor projects. There, Russia will also somehow, that Pakistan is trying to patch with Russia, and Iran will somehow, so there would be access for China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan against India, US, because India and US has pressurized Pakistan on terrorism issues, and Hafiz Saeed was arrested. So I think there is more cooking going on behind.
There's more to it than meets the eye, is what you're suggesting.
All these scenarios.
Fair enough.
And I'm
running out of time, so
yes.
quick closing comments from both my guests here to my right, starting with you, Ambassador. Ambassador, one thing is for sure and one thing is certain, that this particular matter is not going to be over in a hurry, is it? Because this is going to take a long time.
No, they themselves have said, their defense minister, that he has the right to appeal, and that appeal, and then a mercy petition, all the rest. So they're not going to execute the sentence straight away. I mean, that's quite clear. I think any hope on the Pakistan judiciary to deliver a fair verdict is laughable.
Sure.
To my mind, it's truly ridiculous. There's no other point. So the only thing that works in such cases is a firm resolve, keeping your nerve, and what did I say? And I'll repeat the word, reciprocity.
Sure.
I don't need to elaborate that word further.
Right. Marshal, your closing comments on the program, conclude the show for us.
No, I think the case is a serious one. It could spin out relations between the two countries even worse than what it already is. So I think maturity, statesmanship is called for. The viewers will recall that an airbase was struck in January last year, and yet there was no military response, there was no surgical strike. Of course, that happened only much later. So every moment will demand the two sides to have a back channel. I think this is a time for a back channel. I always believed, of course there are oppositions to this particular line, that back channels helps you in difficult moments like this, because otherwise you're only doing démarches and you're calling the High Commissioners, they'll call ours, we'll call theirs. So you can do a direct, and then you can, what the point Sanjay made, then you can cut through that fault line in the civil-military relationship.
Sure.
And I think that may be a good way, even at this point. Larger perspective to back channel is extremely useful, because crises, whenever they take place, can spin out of hand.
Okay, I'm completely out of time, so I'll have to wrap. Yeah, quick.
But appeal must.
See,
Appeal is a must.
See, I think we need to understand Pakistan is a crude state. There is no reciprocity will work. I think we need to act more and more firmly against Pakistan. What we are doing in last few months.
Sure enough.
Reciprocity means to do to the other what he is doing to you. That is the meaning of reciprocity.
Okay, fair enough.
Diplomatic terms.
Fair enough. Okay, I'll tell you what. On that note, we'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture, because we're completely out of time on the program. Vivek, Katju, Kapil, Siddharth, Varadarajan, Sanjay Bharadwaj, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for watching. See you again next time.